Go Big 12 or go home. I'm Brandon Shanahan, joined as always by Iowa broadcasting legend Drew Russell, braving the elements in Middle America right now. How much snow did
Oh,
you end up getting up there?
at least I think about 6, 7 inches, maybe a little bit more. Feels like more.
Yeah,
The first big snow of the year, and I always enjoy the first big snow of the year.
yeah,
Anytime, Brandon, I think it's great. It's pretty nice weather-wise, only mid-high 20s, which is great. But it'll get to you after a little while. But it's beautiful right now. It's been a nice, needed
yeah.
snow for sure.
Yeah, it's always, especially the first one, because it's kind of exciting. You might even get to finagle a snow day or two, get out of some extra responsibilities one way or the other.
Course.
But then, man, after that is where it drove me up the wall. Like tomorrow seems like it would be a nightmare.
Oh yeah, no,
Definitely the next day.
100%. But hey, you enjoy. There's just something about that very first day that it's just scenic. It's
Yeah,
calm. People, I mean, seem to appreciate a little more. I feel like
yeah,
driving people actually take their time a little bit more. I could make the argument that first snow day, some are aggressive, but
mhm,
um, sooner or later, Brandon, that beautiful dirt slush is going to be just around the corner on the
you
side of the
betcha.
roads. And boy, there's not a better sight in America than seeing a big pile of snow next to your local fairway.
No kidding, no kidding. Just turns into a block of ice at some point. I remember kids be like, "Oh, a big pile of snow. Let's jump into it." You're not going anywhere.
I
It's
know
not
it's
gonna.
it,
You're not gonna go how you think it is.
no, it never does. Like that ice, ooh, that and sometimes that snow looks so powdery. We got some pretty good powdery snow, so
Yeah.
I can't complain about that whatsoever. But yeah, when you get those ice chunks and it just accumulates with dirt, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
But there is something to be said, like as it's snowing and as it's starting to accumulate, how when it's soft and white, it just absorbs noise, and then everybody's inside, and it's just quiet. Even in the
Yeah.
most noisy areas that can be, it's just there's just such a hush, and it's as beautiful as it gets.
Yeah, no, you're dead right about that. Like it was, midnight last night in my apartment complex.
Ooh,
And I mean, it's just dead silent
yeah.
outside. And you just open the door. I didn't open it for long, but for about 30 seconds, I just stood outside. There's just all this whirlwind snow falling out of the sky. It's just accumulating in all these cars outside, accumulating on the grass. And it's just this eerie, beautiful silence that it's so tough to explain. And usually we get this around, December or even sometimes earlier. So a little later this year in January. But there's just something really beautiful about a snowfall
Mhm.
um, like that. We're just, the world stops, it feels like, even if it's just for a few hours.
And there's also something to be said about it, being in the mid 20s, because it's not crazy unbearably
Mhm.
cold, where it hurts to be outside, so you can kind of
Yes.
enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you can do winter sports. Like you can go outside and if you want to snowball fight, build a snowman, all that, it's perfect. Like
Yeah,
mid high 20s is great, especially if you
great.
have lack of wind. It's perfect if you want to ski or I don't know, whatever you want to do, snowmobile or do something outside like that. Like mid high 20s is
That's
great. But when it's zero or negative, like
He's like, I'll catch the next one.
yeah, you're just like, my car better start,
Yeah,
when if I'm walking out of work or walking out of a game, because
yeah,
if it doesn't, this is going to be an interesting night. So that battery better be working this time of year.
man. And for probably, so let's say it's been a total of about 3 years. For probably the first year and a half, I lived in Iowa. I didn't have heat in my car.
That's bananas.
Yeah,
I don't even know how.
I mean it was gritty, and
That
like
yeah,
thinking
that
about
is
all
gritty.
the road work we had to do in our industry. I mean, it was,
That's some cold nights.
yeah, it's cold
That's
nights.
some cold nights. But I give you a lot of credit. You have more guts than I do.
I got after I for some reason I remember it the worst when I know why it used to be so bad because in college I lived about a half hour away, and I would volunteer for like for any radio shift I could get on, which would sometimes be like the 4 to 8 slot. And boy, getting out when it's less than 10 degrees, freezing, have a half hour drive with no heat. Because yeah, I know in Washington I just walked to work. That wasn't ever a bad deal, and it wasn't
Yep.
sport, so it wasn't on the road. Uh, and then I think I must have gotten it fixed by the time I got to Perry, because that's when the road trip started settling
Yeah.
down, Guthrie Center and company. So I don't remember too many cold drives there outside of the normal drives, but yeah,
No,
it was gritty.
yeah, grittier than me. No, if it was a cold, usually like basketball, for example, we were pretty lucky that, we could sit in a warm environment the
Mhm.
entire game. Even if it was cold outside, and you didn't have heat, you still feel like you could heat up in a gym. And if you had enough layers, you could hang in there. But I mean, I've definitely called a few football games in my life, and I've called a couple outside as well, Brandon,
Mhm.
that if I didn't have heat afterwards, it'd been killing me. I've been calling a game one time down in Pella. I had to sit outside the entire game, about 15 degrees on a metal bleacher. That was blasted 86 the entire way back to Des Moines.
Yeah, you just gotta
That was
thaw it
the
out.
only way
Yeah,
I could make it. So I was chattering
yeah.
teeth as I was eating a Dutch letter. So it's brutal. You find a way. You
You
find a
find a
way,
way.
as I would say. You
Oh
find a way.
man, I had a couple of those where I had like a couple of layers of ski mask on, and I'm like, I probably sound like shit, but it's the only way.
You have to do whatever it takes to be a broadcaster, and sometimes you're thrown into pretty tough situations, and can't
Gotta
complain.
be
You find a
adaptable.
way. People, hey, if you got sponsors paying for ads, you got to find a way to get on the air.
Mhm.
If you don't, then you got to talk to the big boys upstairs, and you don't want that.
No, I mean that's you don't want to be going up that way. You want to just be
Mm,
staying at where you know
of course. Yeah,
where
no,
your pay grade is.
you definitely want to make sure you're getting the word out. No one's ever going to debate that.
Got to be the one to count on. Sometimes
Mm.
that goes a long way.
Well, I'll tell you what. You know who else was counted on? Brandon Shanahan. How about the Big 12 and bowl season for certain teams? So I feel like we had a mixed bag of results at the end of the day for Big 12 football and bowl season. We had some really nice wins. I felt came more in the early portion of the bowl season because we were both riding high on our last
Hmm.
podcast.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
after that, kind of found some, dare I say, uncertainty in terms of final results with Oklahoma losing, Iowa State losing, and of course, Texas losing to Washington. Still doesn't take away from an entertaining Big 12 season, but kind of a disappointing end to a bowl season that went under a lot of scrutiny. I may add, people seem to be more angry at it than maybe previous years. It's always gotten some flack, but I also have to say, let's give a big shout out to the Pop Tarts Bowl, Kansas State a champion,
I mean,
and
it doesn't
that
get
was
any
the
better than
best
that.
moment. That was the best moment of probably the Big 12 bowl season. One of the top moments in general bowl season was that giant Pop Tart mascot just going in this big oven, and then all of a sudden this big thing comes out and they just start hammering this Pop Tart. It was a great moment
They got it
in
after it.
bowl game history. And that's what I got. I mean, seriously.
And there's a yeah, and there's a lot of sentiment that's like, oh, bowl season's ruined. I'm like, no, not really. Now, granted
Yeah.
that there's, and I don't know if this will. I don't. I don't think this will get any better with the 12 team playoff. But when you watch these games, the guys on the field, this means a lot to them. Obviously, you have some stuff to clean up with the transfer portal, and you now it's a world where you're going to have a lot of opt outs. That's going to be unavoidable outside of playoff games. But man, the guys on the field, whether it's seniors who are playing their last game with their team, or new guys who are coming in and trying to bring some spotlight onto their game and try to build some momentum going into the spring, it matters to these guys. You see these smaller schools, these group of five schools getting on network television. I mean, that's such a big deal
Mhm.
to guys like that and the programs like that. I I didn't feel that at all this year. As I felt it some,
Mm.
when you look at certain matchups. But man, I still think it means so much to so many people.
Yeah, and that's it's a fair point. The guys that played again, I thought there was passion, there was energy for the guys that were there for I'd say the majority of the games. I think the thing that stood out to me was fan bases didn't seem as dialed in for those mid-major bowl games that they did maybe 10 to 20 years ago and beyond. And obviously the easy, I think a fair example, Arizona, Oklahoma, we previewed that a good amount. That was a very entertaining bowl game, a game in which Arizona won, which, by the way, sounds like Oklahoma has some shipping to do. All their former Big 12 titles and stuff
Yeah.
need to go to Arizona since that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But,
They don't need them anyways.
exactly. They got the SEC. They need room for their SEC trophy case. What's interesting though about it is, for OU fans, they like I talked to quite a few and they said, we don't care. It wasn't, like this really wasn't our team. You don't have your starting quarterback. You're missing multiple guys from the transfer portal, NFL draft, all that. Like, since they don't seem to care, like, why should I care? And that's whether that's fair or not for those, kids that are still playing. That is kind of a narrative, I think, amongst a lot of fan bases. And, for OU, like 15, 20 years ago, they said, look, like, this game wasn't for a national championship. It wasn't for anything, but like, that bowl loss in the Fiesta Bowl to Boise State, that still hurts like crazy. Like that
Yeah.
loss was brutal. Like, and that's the difference. It felt like those bowl games 15, 20 years ago, even when those teams weren't playing for a national championship, bowl losses were horrible. I remember as a kid, like Iowa State played it was an Independence Bowl, and they're playing Alabama, which is hilarious. And Iowa State got hosed in the fourth quarter, and Alabama won. It was, I think, Independence or Humanitarian, whatever it was. And Iowa State fans were pissed for weeks. They were like, and these were two 6-6 teams that faced each other, and they were mad.
Yeah.
They wanted the winning season, and that's not the case anymore. It's just, we went 6-7. Okay, hopefully we're better next year. And I don't disagree with you. I think fan bases care way less.
Yeah, it's tough to say, and I wonder how much of that comes into the fact that Oklahoma lost. How much would they have cared if they had won? Maybe
That's
that
fair.
changes. Maybe not.
It just doesn't
maybe
feel
not.
like the wins don't mean as much. I mean, Georgia pummels Florida State, a Florida State team that did not resemble what it did during the regular season.
Yeah.
They won the Orange Bowl, Brandon. The Orange Bowl traditionally is a big deal.
Yeah.
They didn't care at all. Well, we didn't make
That's
the play.
true.
Like Mizzou, I don't like Mizzou. I don't ever hide that. They beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Big win. I was down, I've been in Mizzou or, in Missouri visiting folks for holidays. And I'll tell you what, Brandon, like, kind of amazing the lack of, I'll even say regional coverage on their victory. Like, one local TV station was there. Local radio talked about it some, not a lot. But I was like, 15 years ago, this is a major deal that they're playing in the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State. But, since Ohio State didn't have their starting QB, a top 5 wide receiver in the draft, all this, I think people are like, well, great win, great season, but like, it isn't what it was. And I think that's been the difference is those big bowl games, even those mid-tier bowl games, they felt like they meant more. But again, like if they're not playing a team at full strength, that win doesn't seem to matter as much, and it's more watered down. And I think that does affect the product.
Yeah, it's a different thing, and I feel like we're kind of starting to see that slope off because I feel like even recently, like winning a New Year's Six bowl meant something, or winning a BCS bowl back in their time that meant something, even if it wasn't a national championship. And I think that's just getting affected by opt outs more than anything, because I think it felt like there at least used to be tiers where like you can still take pride in winning an Orange
Right.
Bowl, a Sugar Bowl, a Cotton Bowl Classic, Alamo Bowl. Like even though kind of higher name games, uh, and I don't know. And there's a that I think it's really going to separate the Power Five and Group of Five teams. Like I said, I feel like with the Group of Five teams, it still feels like it means a lot to them, and there's still a lot
I
of
agree.
impactful things like getting eyeballs on your program on network television, stuff like that. And then you have, I feel like the teams that just get left out of the playoff moving forward, I think you're going to have a hard time really kind of getting up for those games. But then I think something also cool comes out of that because then you get to look at some players for next year that maybe didn't get
Right.
as much playing time next year or this year.
Right. It's just how you view things. Like I think it was fun to see a lot of teams try, new players, guys you don't usually see. I think that is a unique deal, but I don't think bowl season was bad. I think I was more entertained by it than I'd say the average fan. I thought
Yeah.
there were some really quality games, some I thought well played and well coached games that were interesting. But at the same time, certain wins and certain losses. I think just in general to a general fan base, and I'm not including the college football playoff. I don't know if they hurt as much maybe as they once did. And United States is a country too, Brandon, that's built on playoff systems. It
Mhm.
is amazing that the bowl game system has been as successful as for as long as it's has been. I mean, this has been going on for decades. And for it to never, I mean, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL all have brackets and postseason play. It's not just, hey, this is your assigned game. They have all of that. Same with NCAA basketball, which is, a little brother to college football in terms of the collegiate, model. And I mean, that's the most, arguably thrilling tournament on the planet in terms of just the chaos, and that's a bracket style. So
Mhm.
the Bulls have done a lot of good for a lot of years. I still think they're going to have a lot of productivity going forward. Um, but there are going to be a lot of wrinkles and things to iron out with the new 12-team playoff. But if you want to see more quality postseason football, to put it bluntly, I think a bracket style was the only option going forward. And frankly, more teams that make it, um, just there's going to be more interest.
I agree. I agree. I also want to point out I don't think it's the playoff that's killing off the Bulls. I think some people are kind of throwing out a correlation where
Agreed.
before the playoff, bowl games are great. Yeah, but it's not the playoff.
Right.
And in fact, it might even be worse because now we have four teams in a competing for a national championship as opposed to two. So those two teams that didn't make it are likely going to suffer from the same kind of consequences that
Right.
teams these days are, as far as NFL opt outs and the transfer portal still around. So um, so I don't think that's it. And I just think that there's got to be a way. And it's unfortunate because I don't necessarily trust the people who are making these decisions,
Mhm.
but there's got to be a way to keep both of these in harmony because I think that there's still plenty of value in bowl games, but also we have a larger national championship picture, which I think is great, and I think going to bring in
Yep.
a lot of dollars for the decision makers. But I just hear a lot of sentiment like those two can't exist or
Yeah.
coexist, and I think that there's a way. We just got to figure out a little bit.
Yeah, it's going to take talent, but they shouldn't get rid of bowl games. I'm not even remotely saying that because there's still a lot of good for them. And I think many teams still enjoy being a part of bowl games. I wouldn't be in mind if bowl games were a little more difficult to get into, just from if they were able to cut some of those games down. If you said, hey, if you're 500, you're not making it. You got to have at least 7 wins or have a winning record, have all that. I do think it means something for sure. So just definitely, I mean, what incentives are out there? How do you draw eyeballs in? And is it possible? Viewership is ever changing. It's going to take some, frankly, it's like always sports. There's two things in sports: you have passionate fans and fans you have to market towards. That's how you get eyeballs, and they're going to have to get very creative with marketing ideas and hopefully a better product on the field as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits that college football has that maybe not any other sport has is the ability to be creative and kind of it increase the marketing. Like the Pop Tarts Bowl this year, it was awesome, fantastic, a
Mm.
beautiful piece of marketing creativity, and adding a little extra pizzazz to a game that translates to internet news and interest and
Yeah.
intrigue. I mean, we're going to be talking about the Pop Tart guy for a long time, for better or for
Yeah.
worse. So I think that's got to I think that's got to serve as an inspiration to those folks to really maximize things.
Yeah, that's going to be the key going forward for those games. And again, um, to put it bluntly, I think it's exciting that we are getting a bigger. We're going from 3 games to 11 games for the college football playoff, which is very exciting. But there's still a lot of time in between those games. People, I always say from December 26th through New Year's, that is a great time for college football to really showcase their talent. And I think they, not that I'm against bowl games and they don't really do them after New Year's anymore or not as much. Um, but I would be more obsessed with trying to find a way to kind of, not have any bowl games or limit bowl games before Christmas. See if you could do more of a, try to do it all within that 1 week. And even though you might have to put some games on an ESPN2 or something, I think it'd be interesting just to have more of a hey, there is football on 2 channels, 3 channels all day for 5, 6 days. I do think that would generate some interest because there are some Americans at home that maybe have a few days off between the Christmas and the New Year season.
Yeah, lots of folks trying to burn that last PTO before the end of the year.
Mm, have to. You have to. You cherish that PTO, Brandon. That's what I always say. There's some companies that are really good with that stuff, and there
Yep.
are others that they're a little more stingy. There's no doubt about that. So you always take it, folks. Don't
Always
leave it.
take.
I don't care. I don't care if you think it's helping the company. You take that for you. Take
Yep,
that
absolutely.
PTO.
Take that. Use it. Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Achievement.
We're a very
Simple.
pro worker podcast. Here we
Yeah,
go.
let's be real here. Yeah, take that PTO. Good night.
Even if you have to cram it all in December. Lots of bowl games.
Lots of bowl games. Lots of bowl games. Let's cram it all in there. Get that PTO, ladies and gentlemen. But again, there's going to be some interesting things going forward, Brandon. I think with just how do they find ways to keep eyeballs interested? And this is more of an off-season podcast discussion too on this next part. But again, viewer habits are changing. College students are Gen Z kids. I feel old talking like this to an extent, but like Gen Z kids are not watching team sports as much. That viewership is really taking a steep decline, which is kind of interesting to me that they're not as interested. We'll see if that continues. And if that's the case, not just college football, but what are leagues going to do to try to generate interest in that going forward? So that definitely is something that'll be interesting for sure.
And I think the number one thing, and you can't really manufacture this in a boardroom or production meeting or marketing meeting, is having good football on. And I think we got very blessed with that this year, especially with the college football playoff. We've had some bad playoffs in the past as far as blowouts goes, but this year, um, this is our first episode since the semifinals were played. Um, what a range of games that we got. We got what felt like a defensive battle, one where you're sitting on the edge of your seat every single drive because any mistake, any score, could be the thing that flips it. Thought that we were going to get a safety on that last punt return on Michigan's behalf, um, which would have, I mean, that would have been the most insane ending since the kick six.
Man.
Also involved Alabama in that game, and then it felt like the later game kind of had to catch our breath beforehand, but I mean, what felt like more shootout. Washington built a big lead. Texas storms back, has an opportunity to win the game after having a second put back on the clock. Not a fan of that, to be honest. As soon as I saw Sark throw up the one, just immediately picturing Mac Brown and the '09 Big 12 championship game. The image that
Mm,
still burns in my mind, and
mm.
still a regular topic in on the therapy couch. But what a fantastic college football semifinal game, both coming down to the last play of the game.
I crack up, Brandon, because that was my first thought too. I'm not even a Nebraska fan, but when they added that 1 second back, I thought, "You gotta be
We're
kidding
doing
me!
this.
Here we go. They're gonna." I was pretty convinced they were gonna score. Had no doubt in my mind, and that we'll start with the Texas Washington game because that was a great game. And I know Washington doesn't end up being the national champion, but they were a good football team, really good.
Real good football team.
Penix and those wide receivers. Probably the best unit in the entire country when it comes to just QB to wide receiver play. And I know they didn't have a great national championship game, but that Michigan defense was pretty solid against everybody that they played this year, and they were pretty good against Washington too. But man, for Texas, pretty gut-wrenching loss. It felt like a winnable game. They had the home crowd advantage. Not that they had bad QB play, but Quinn Ewers, I think, had a game that he probably wished he could play a little bit better. No question there. Their defense, did a nice job with that run game of Washington and was able to slow that down enough. But yeah, really struggle in that pass coverage. And again, Washington's quite good, but a missed chance. It felt like they were really out of the game. Not a chance anything was going to happen, but Washington running back gets hurt, Brandon. All of a sudden, an unexpected, time stops, and what should have been about 5 seconds on the clock turned into 45. And give them credit. They got down the field. They get into the red zone. You're thinking there is legit life. But Washington had one final play in them. But for Texas, concludes a great year, a year in which they had many doubters, myself included. I definitely, yep. I mean, you and I are both in the same boat, Brandon. I didn't think Steve Sarkisian could get it done. And he did in terms of winning a conference championship, getting his team back in the college football playoff, or not even back in the college football playoff, getting them to the college football playoff the first time in Texas history. They didn't get what they wanted was the national championship, but they can't complain. It was a great year. And for, changing a narrative from 2 years ago of them and Oklahoma are in serious trouble going into the SEC. Texas has set themselves up, especially if Quinn Ewers comes back. Even if he doesn't, Arch Manning will be a very intriguing QB prospect, and he'd actually be an iconic QB for year one of the SEC. But they're well positioned in the SEC to go in there and immediately compete and get double-figure wins. I would be surprised next year, especially with the expanded playoff, if it was just 4 again. I'd have some doubts just based on the competition they're going to see at times. But with the 12-team playoff, I'd be a little surprised if Texas doesn't make it back next year.
I think so too. I mean, they're losing a lot of talent, but it seems like they've really built the program up the right way and to a point where they can have sustained success. And for me, it was a big point of like, I think they're going to be pretty talented. I think they're going to be well coached. I think they're going to win a bunch of games. But it's just you got to see it. I got to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the same thing about Florida State. Now both of those teams, like, all right, I've seen it now. Now I can believe. Now I have faith that they're going to go in and have sustained success. And I also think, maybe not with Texas so much, but I think it would be very funny if Oklahoma and Texas go into the Big 12 or go into the SEC and just dominate as Big 12 teams.
Yeah.
That would be real easy for my pro Big 12 agenda.
Oh, yeah. No, and I mean, that's not impossible. They could definitely do. I think Texas is better positioned, but OU, they're going to compete. I always will say that. They're going to compete, and it will be interesting to see. But for Texas, a pretty tough loss. And, for teams and programs to say, hey, you know what, there's always next year, we'll be back. That's never a guarantee. I don't care who you are. Not everybody is I know Alabama's kind of the gold standard right now, but even they've, they lose this year. And even though they have won a lot, no one's ever going to feel sorry for them based on all the situation they lose. But hey, 20, 30 years from now, Nick Saban's going to be retired.
I think eventually.
And they might not be at the same standard of success. And those are the type of games, they're in their loss to Michigan where they're thinking, dang, we wish we got that. Like, if you have a chance to win it, I don't care. New England Patriots fans, look, they've won more than enough this century. No one's going to deny that. But at the same time, there are certain games or teams that they're just like, man, they get more heartbroken over that than maybe more excited over those wins. Like you always remember the losses oftentimes more than the wins.
Yeah.
So for Texas, it's a missed chance. Doesn't mean that they don't have future chances ahead, but this one, I thought was a winnable game for them, and they were close. It came down to one play. Washington, I thought, was the better team most of the night and definitely deserved the victory, no question.
I agree. It felt like a good matchup. And then as far as the national championship goes, I'm bummed. I'm bummed that we didn't get a bit better of a game. I know Michael Penix got beat up pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's just
how about
game.
Just the bizarreness of I got to talk about some of the visuals that we saw at the game this week, Brandon. First off, love that John Harbaugh was late on his flight, and instead of just going to the stands, he goes down onto the field middle of the game to give his brother a hug. That killed me. I was like, this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Like, this just does not happen that a coach will just walk onto the sidelines, but it happened.
Yeah, I mean, well, you get a little bit more cachet when you're a Super Bowl winning head football coach.
Yeah, I feel like he gets away with that. Because I think if he was just an average brother, that wasn't known house-wise, people would be losing their minds. They'd be like, doesn't they know that stay off the field and let his brother coach? But you're right, since he's a Super Bowl winning coach, his Ravens are the 1 seed. No one thinks twice. They're just like, well, yeah. And the Harbaugh family is a unique family. They're chaos. A
lot of characters.
I don't know if you saw that clip of his parents after they beat Alabama, that there was this viral clip on Twitter that they were talking to his mom and dad, which, by the way, Brandon, you need to take a look at the photo of Jim Harbaugh's dad. Because this dude, it literally an exact match.
Looks like
in 25 years, he will look exactly like it. No question.
Saw somebody posting there's no way this is actually his dad and not just Jim Harbaugh dressed as an old man.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable replica. But they were him and his mom were just doing all these chants for 90 seconds to this interviewer. And I was just bursting out laughing. I'm like, I get where Jim becomes who he is. He's exactly like these people. It's hilarious. So the visual between, John Harbaugh walking on the field giving a hug. Also a big shout out to former Indiana coach Tom Crean getting some much needed love last night. He was in the front row in a Michigan blazer, which killed me because I guess he's married to Harbaugh's sister. So that was an unexpected twist I did not know. So just some good visuals, hilarious stuff. The Harbaughs, what a weird season for Michigan, but one they're going to remember for a long time. They're winners. Whether that counts long term remains to be seen. But they went 15-0, Brandon, and they made it count.
Okay, some technical difficulties, but we're back. Yeah, what an interesting family. And every time that Jim Harbaugh speaks, because I feel like we've gotten to a point where coaches are so well coached in how to talk to the media and how to choose your words carefully and this and that. But with Jim Harbaugh, that goes out the window. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get. And I don't think anything crazy to Jim Harbaugh standards came out, but definitely a couple of tidbits.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Like he again, they are just he's a fascinating man. You're either going to love the guy or he's going to rub you the wrong way. But it seems anybody who's played for him, they're all in. But this guy, Brandon, missed 6 games this year, 6 of 15 games, and they won
Yeah.
based off of 2 different suspensions for different things. And I'm not sure we will ever see that again in college football for a national championship team. I don't know. I doubt it.
No,
We'll see, but I doubt it.
I mean, what a year. I mean, you get an extra 6 Fridays in the fall to go spend with the family. Go maybe do some pumpkin patches
Yeah.
the first week. Go see some Christmas lights towards the end of the season, and enjoy some family time. Then you come back win a national championship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't get any
Against a
better than
future
that.
conference foe. Against a future conference foe.
No kidding.
Well,
Does this championship get an asterisk for the cheating scandal?
I think it eventually does. But like I don't like Michigan is so like I love how many programs are there in college football where it's us versus the world?
Well,
That could be for a future episode, but like how because there's like a lot of college football programs like, well, it's us against it. Like everybody hates us.
yeah,
And now Michigan to justify it, it is pretty easy to hate Michigan.
very easy to hate Michigan, but also they do it themselves.
Right.
It's not yeah, it's your
Right.
cheating that we're all upset about.
Right. So, that's what I'm saying though. And that they're just going to use that narrative though of, well, it's us against the world.
Yeah.
They hate us, that they do whatever. I mean, Connor Stallions, that dude was getting free drinks. So like, come on now. I mean, they love the guy. It's part of the us against the world deal. I don't know. I mean, but I'll give him credit. It was a great run in terms of, beat a good Alabama team. They beat a good Washington team. Not saying their postseason run wasn't justified. How you view the rest is up to you. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to make it long term. But then again, when you talk about USC and those Pete Carroll teams, people seem to remember more the product on the field and the all the wins they got. And we've changed a lot. If Reggie Bush doesn't have a Heisman for taking some off-campus housing and like $1,000, we've changed a lot, Brandon. Things are a little different these days.
A little bit different. I saw Caitlin Clark on my television today. So, as a spokesperson for State Farm, I saw that.
Yep.
The different world that we're living in. Objectively, I don't think there should be an asterisk. Obviously, Alabama or Michigan addressed the things that they were accused of, and disciplinary action was taken. And boy, I got to imagine that they stopped doing that. I feel pretty good about it. Feel pretty good that if they didn't stop, we would know about it. So I feel like the championship's pretty clean. However, I do think it's just funny to me seeing how worked up Michigan fans are going to get to just throw out the asterisk championship there.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll count long term for NCAA ramifications, but again, those fans don't care. That's going to always be a championship
for sure.
A championship to them. So it'll be interesting though. Harbaugh, I know that the NFL rumors continue to be thrown out there. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition or not. But if he's going to make the jump, now's the time.
For sure.
I do feel pretty strongly about that. If he's going to make that jump, and I don't know if he's got anything left to accomplish in Michigan. I wouldn't blame him if he jumped back into the NFL for one final opportunity with the right franchise.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It feels like it seems like he's a guy who loves a good challenge and loves accomplishing new things. His brother's got a Super Bowl over him, so he's got to figure it out.
No doubt about that. I love that we got a little furry guest in the background of Brandon's camera right now. What a legend!
Just crawling out of the fireplace,
man.
Never know where
ready to talk Harbaugh. I'm going to call that cat Harbaugh from now on.
Yeah, there we go. He's dialed it. He's like, well, actually, if you want to talk about Jim Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, and I feel like he's the chaotic energy of that family, to where like John seems perfectly established, perfectly happy. Just having as much success as he can with his one spot, Baltimore's home. But with Jim, He came in to Stanford, won a lot of ball games. Could have kept building up that program, had that program humming. Goes to the NFL, has a lot of success there pretty instantly. Then once that, I don't know, kind of felt stale, why not go revamp and win a national championship at your alma mater? And now it feels like an opportunity to kind of go back and get after it. The
Yeah,
Baltimore
a
coach,
lot of
the
excitement.
the Colts, do they have a coach that they like? Are they getting rid of theirs? That would be an interesting spot
They
for
got they
Harbaugh.
got no, they got a new I can't think of Steichen, Shane Steichen.
Oh,
He's
that's
just a
right.
first year guy. Yeah, so they're
Yeah, they're
good
not
with
getting rid of
him. I think the spot that would be interesting for him, the Chargers are interesting with Herbert.
Yep.
I feel like that could be an interesting situation right there. Also, the other
And the
one,
Raiders will make a push.
Raiders are somebody to keep an eye on. The team I was really keeping an eye on, but they didn't fire their coach, was the Bears. I really thought the
Yeah.
Bears were going to get rid of Eberflus, and they, as of right now, no plans to do so. And I thought if they get rid of Eberflus, you can't tell me Jim Harbaugh's not thinking, okay, I get first pick in the draft with QB, whatever I want. And then they do have a defense that's improving. They do have talent offensively. He played in Chicago. Like, he breathes,
Yep.
I feel like, Chicago. He fits that mantra quite well. It made sense, but as of right now, that's surely a hypothetical.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you. That would have been a real good landing spot. And I think that the one consistency with NFL coaches who have success is, do you have a quarterback? And Jim Harbaugh at Chicago would have a plethora of choices for quarterback. You could stick with Justin Fields. You could trade for a veteran. You get draft any guy that you want with that first overall pick. You could trade back and get another guy that you like in the draft. So the options are plenty. Justin Herbert's obviously not a bad quarterback to have your job dependent on either. I know they got an old, expensive roster, so I don't know if that's a great landing spot short term, but I get Jim Harbaugh, he loves a good challenge. So
Hey, we'll find out for sure. We'll find out for sure. I do want to throw out Brandon, before we kind of wrap things up. I want to give a shout out to the 2024 Way Too Early College Top 25
dude,
picks.
they're
It's
everywhere.
out for multiple websites. I'm going to go with ESPN's to keep it simple. They're everywhere. Pick a list. You pick
Everywhere.
a list you
Everyone's
want.
doing one.
But big, hey, Big 12's got some teams though. I didn't see any of the top 10. Utah's 13. They do have some love with Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Kansas, and Iowa State. So will be interesting to see just kind of how teams take advantage kind of this offseason and the season going into next year. But again, there's so much going on this offseason for the Big 12. They go to 16 teams next year. Going to create some chaos in football. Basketball right now is feeling the chaos of the 14-team league in both men's and women's hoops. It's as Big 12 play has begun this last weekend and into this week, been highly entertaining so far, and I don't expect that to change. We'll dial into that in future episodes, but there's some good stuff on the way, Brandon. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Less football related topic. Big 12, the new Big 12 went 6-3 in bowl games. So get out those two losers in Oklahoma and Texas who couldn't win their bowl game. You bring in two teams like Arizona and I'm trying to think who the other
Arizona
and
Are you talking
Washington
about
won
wins?
their bowl game. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
That's right. So but yeah, Big 12 football is looking great, and we already knew that Big 12 basketball is looking great. Already a couple of games in to the league season, and boy, we're already getting some treats. Houston and Iowa State. That's what we were looking for. That's what we've been talking about this whole time. As far as there's no nights off. I mean,
No.
Cincinnati and Texas going down to the wire. Even Texas going on the road. I mean, Cincinnati's not. They're not a top tier Big 12 team. Doesn't matter.
Well,
Going on the
they're
road.
playing like one right now,
Yeah.
Brandon. They beat BYU, a ranked top 15 team on the road. Cincinnati's tough. TCU very easily and should have won in Lawrence last Saturday. They fell short by 2 points. Houston was the last undefeated team. You talk about the win against Iowa State. Big 12 hoops. It's brutal. It cannibalizes itself. It is a really, really difficult conference. I might have to go watch the movie Hannibal Lecter or something along that in the coming days, just to get a feel for the Big 12, because it's brutal. It's brutal. It's unforgiving, but usually sharpens teams up. But gosh, I mean, shoot, just in the last 5 years, they've got four teams in the conference that have won a national championship or played for a national championship, in winners in Kansas, Houston, Baylor, and a finalist in Texas Tech. So this is a tough league. And the 4 new additions, BYU's top 15. Cincinnati is very stingy, and I think should be ranked. They're really difficult. Houston is obviously just a dog. I know they got their first loss now, but they're Final Four good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And even Central Florida, they're figuring out their way, but there's talent, and they're going to see.
Oklahoma's had a lot of good wins so far. They're coming along.
Yeah, they're a lot better. They're tough. I mean, Texas is going to continue to battle. This is a good conference, Brandon. We don't have to really build that. We don't have to give that away, but there's some good teams. Kansas State continues to roll. Baylor's having a comeback year after kind of a down year last couple. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays going forward. The men's have been great. Women's have had some pretty intriguing games and teams as well. So that's been a lot of fun. Heck, Big 12 wrestling's been great too. So it's been a lot of good stuff, and sports in the conference will be really, for the first time, kind of starting in the coming weeks, Brandon, really starting to dig into some other sports a little more on a regular basis, which we're both really looking forward to. And of course, we're going to throw our football conversations in, because that's just guaranteed. But
yeah,
I'm sorry, we're not. It's tough to not talk football at least once on a podcast. But
absolutely.
But that said, there are some really interesting storylines, and we'll see how it plays out.
I guess skipped over this part. The other thing I was disappointed with, national championship game wise, no college football video game trailer. No new information there.
Just come on, people. Like, it's not hard. Get the trailer out. People want this game. Guys are getting paid. Yeah. Get the revenue sharing plan in there and get it figured out. Okay? Jim Harbaugh agrees with me. So, he
everybody's
wants guys
on board
to get paid. Everybody's on board. It really is that simple.
Oh boy, there was some. It felt like a substantial amount of rumors that we're going to get some information on the game, which would have made sense. I mean, use your, the sports crowning day to promote the game, and that never came through. Thought post game we were going to get it, and boy, because I was at a sports book while this game was going on. If I guarantee you, Drew Russell, in anywhere in America where you're watching this game, where Matt's people are interested in, if the commercials are just EA Sports, it's in the game, whole place goes nuts. It doesn't even matter what comes next. Just the game's still happening. Maybe a release timeline, July 2025 or so, or 2024. Maybe sprinkle in some highlights of the national championship game that we just saw. How great would that have been?
It's not hard, guys. This is an easy money venture for a lot of people. People want it. Also, it does kind of help increase, I think, interest in your product as well on the field. Like, people can play video games of this stuff. Like, people might be more like, oh, I like to watch that as well, just on TV. So, missed opportunity branding wise for a lot of people, but that's why they get paid the big bucks, and I guess that's why I'm here. Brandon, maybe it's just as simple as that, and that's what we're here for. Maybe it's as simple as that.
Well, perfect, Drew. So that's all I had. Any final thoughts before we sign off for the week?
Hey, everybody, have a great week. You stay warm out there. And Big 12 is going to continue to deliver some excellent content. And NFL Wildcard Weekend, my final rant. I already ranted to this to you off camera, Brandon. Get rid of streaming services exclusively on sports, or try to limit it if you can. I understand sometimes it's needed to have access to certain games, but I'm bitter. Come on, playoffs. You got to make sure that's over TV. Any sport, get that on TV. Do not hide that behind paywalls. Don't do that, because guess what? You're not going to, for a lot of Americans, younger Americans, they're not going to pay. They're going to go find your favorite streaming websites online half across the world. And those have never been better compared to 15 years ago where they gave you a virus immediately.
For sure.
100%. Can confirm. So I'll tell you what right now, ladies and gentlemen, get any postseason games off streaming. That's all I've got. Thank you, Brandon.